Greetings everyone, Damon Caskey here. I guess we'll call this a Let's Tinker, but we are in fact going to do some live coding. I'm going to answer a question I noticed on the forum earlier, and that is how to create a single button press dodge command. Now, and I mean no offense to anyone else that's on the forum, but the solutions posited are, to put it bluntly, way overcomplicating the issue. Guys, it doesn't have to be lists and lists of code, and you don't have to fill the screen up with animation scripts or anything like that. You can use a few lines of key code to do it, and I'm going to walk you through the process. And hopefully you can take this and import it not only in your own projects as a dodge command, but also for pretty much any single button thing that you want to try. Anyway, I've already put some of the skeleton together here in that I have taken the latest stable version of OpenBOR. That's the one you can download from GitHub or the main site. Now, not the alpha version, again, the latest stable release. And I have placed it along with the original Beats of Rage module. So we'll just kind of open it up here just to see what everything looks like. You see there's good old Max Bacon and Mary Blueguard and Kula. And we're going to select Kula. And of course, being that this is the original Beats of Rage module, there wasn't a whole lot to the gameplay mechanics. There's no dashing, running, or anything like that. So what we're going to start out with is adding a simple dodge up and a dodge down, or lateral dodge to be more accurate. So I'm going to close the module, and we're going to go into its data folder, and let's find characters. Find Miss Kula here, and let's open up her text file in Visual Studio. So to start out with, let's just create a new animation, anim attack up, and that is going to be her lateral dodge away. I'll grab a couple of these. Actually, let's use the get frames where she's ducking. This is going to be very crude, but again, I'm just using it as an example. We don't need a loop 0, but what we will add is a jump frame. We're not actually going to lift her off the ground, so that is on frame 0. We will move her 0, and I believe no horizontal movement as well, and I believe the last parameter for that is the Z argument, and we're going to say minus half a pixel per second. And I can't remember if she has a dust command or not. No, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about that. I was going to add a little puff of dust because if you're not aware, you can add the name of a model here and it will spawn as a jump dust, but that's kind of getting into feature creep for this video, so we'll leave it out. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to make a copy of this, and just for alphabetical order's sake, we'll put it above the attack up. We're going to call it attack down. And in this case, we're going to add 5 pixels per update. So all this is going to do when I save this is add the native commands, attack up and attack down, and those are already mapped to the command up, up, or down, down quickly. So if I open the module back up, I mean, that's really crude, right? She just kind of ducks and sort of slides on air, but hey, she's an ice girl, right? So we'll just pretend that she is sliding on ice on the bottom of her feet, and we'll worry about visual effects for another day. All she really needs is just a little bit more speed. So let's double it and just make it a full pixel. All right, save and save. Back to Beats of Rage. Open it up again. There we go. Slides a little quicker, right? All right, but the question was how to add a maneuver like that as a dodge button. Specifically, what they want to do is press a button, and then if you're holding up, dodge up. If you're holding down, dodge down without having to tap up, up, or down, down. So we're not going to use the native command. I was just putting that in to try out the animation and get a rough idea of what it looks like. So we're going to swap these out for follow 2 and follow 3, and you don't have to make them follow 2 or follow 3 in your module. They could be whatever you want, but I recommend using the follow animations because follow animations are never executed by native code unless you tell the engine to, which is very different because if you use any other type of animation, then the artificial intelligence has access to it, and there are going to be certain commands that are mapped to it. So in other words, the animations might execute sometime when you don't want them to. So for that reason, we always rely on follow animations for our extra commands. That and follow animations are unlimited. You can have as many as you want to. All you have to do is define max follows and you're good to go. Max follows, by the way, the default is either 4 or 10. I don't remember which one it is, but if you and put in exactly how many you need, remember that it is 0 indexed. So if you have a follow animation 10, i.e. follow 10, that means that you need to define 11 follows because follow is follow 0. Now all of that out of the way, let's start up a script to trigger these guys. So I'm going to go back to Kula again, data, characters, Kula, and I'm going to start up a new file. We'll just say it's a text document, and I'm going to make it a .c, and that way Visual Studio can pick it up again. And we're going to call this event key script .c. Yes, we are going to change the type of file, and then we're going to open it in Visual Studio. Oops, that's not where I wanted to open it, my bad. I wanted to open it in the same window that I have the Kula text file open, so let's do it that way. All right, as you can see, this file is completely empty. So, of course, we need a main. That is a void main. Let's get some space here. Main does not take arguments. And we're going to write a function just because I like to keep specific topics into separate functions. You can insert this code in main if you want to, but I always prefer functions. So we're going to call this, let's see, void DC command dodge. Simple as that, right? All right. And then we're going to need the entity that called the script. So I like to call that acting entity. And that is going to be the local variable self. So get local var self. And we're going to pass that along to my function here as an argument. So DC command dodge void get, okay, acting entity. All right. Now we're going to need player property. So we're going to say int player index equals 0 just to initialize it. And then we are going to need the hold key. So int hold key or key hold, if you will, whichever one you want. Oh, let's just say let's go with key hold. How about that? And we're going to define that as 0. Now let's see if we can do something with it. We will need to get the current player index. So to do that, we will say get entity property, and I'm having to go a little slower here because I'm using legacy commands. Because again, I'm used to using newer engine builds that haven't been released yet. They're not stable, but they do have a lot of fun commands that are a lot easier to use than this one big word here of get entity property. The property we want is player index. Oh, can't forget to pass it the entity argument, acting entity, semicolon, there we go, player index equals. So player index equals get entity property acting entity player, oops, that is player index, not play index. Odds are I'm going to flub something up in this code anyway, but that's all right. That's part of the process, right? Now once we have the player index, we can get the player property. And in this case, we want the key hold. So key hold equals get player property, and then we can send it the player index, and I believe it is just keys. Now remember, there are 3 types of key states in OpenBOR. Under the hood, there's really only one, but that's not something you need to worry about. That is the key being pressed. I'm gonna move this down here so you can see me with all my gestures here. Okay, so the first is when you press the key, then there is if the key is currently on, and then when you release the key. So you have 3 different events you can work with. The player properties for those are, I believe, new key, key, and release keys respectively. Now what we're interested in this case is the key that you are holding. So we're going to get keys. Now here's where things start to get fun. First, we want to know if we are idle or not. So if, actually let's do this. Let's get an idle flag up here. Int idle state equals 0, and then idle state equals get entity property. Of course, our acting entity comes into play again, and then I believe it is AI flag and then idle. Now, I may be mistaken on that, and if I am, I will just look it up in the engine code to make sure I'm writing the correct script, but we'll try this for now. So we want to know 2 things. First is if we are in an idle state. Now the idle flag is active pretty much whenever you're not being attacked, grappling, interacting with another entity, performing some action. More or less, if your character is walking or standing, then they are idles. And since that's when we want to be able to dodge, that's when we're going to have our idle state. So if we are in our idle state, actually let's do it this way. If we are not in our idle state, we will return. So to walk you through this so far, we've got 3 variables. One is the player controlling active entity. Status of player's keys, holding, okay. I'll say active entity idle. All right. Then we start propagating these variables. First thing, we have to have the player index so we can find things out about the player. So we are able to get the player index from the entity property. So first thing, we get an acting entity. That's the entity that activated this script. Then we get the player that's controlling that entity. Then we are going to get, actually, let's optimize this script just a little bit. All right, then we get the player's idle, or excuse me, the acting entity's idle state. If the entity is not idle, then we don't care because we're not going to be able to perform any of these actions. We return, which means exit the script, and we're done. So we don't waste any of our computer's power doing anything else below that or downstream. But let's assume that the entity is idle. Well, the next thing we're going to do is get the state of the keys. That is a single integer, and we are going to populate key hold with that integer. And once we do that, then we can start running our logic, and this is where the logic is simple and why I said some of the things I've seen so far, positive solutions, are a little bit overcomplicated. All we really have to do is look at key hold, let's see, and if it is, let's see, OpenBOR constant, and I just totally screwed something up here, but it doesn't affect the part that I'm writing right now. If key hold OpenBOR constant is flag up, then we can take action going flag up, and let's see, since the logic dictates that we cannot possibly be holding up or down at the same time, we can optimize our logic a little bit here to do an if else. So key hold going to do a little copy pasta here, flag down. Then we can perform our flag down, or excuse me, our dodge down or our dodge up action. But there was something I missed. This is going to be a single button press command, right? Well, I almost forgot to check for the original button. So there is going to be another variable we want to track here, and that is our key press. So silly me. Status of player's new key. All right, so we will get the key hold. But before we do that, we will get the key press. And let's see. As an optimization, we try to think to ourselves, when this script is activated, what is less likely to be occurring? And we want to eliminate that first. So most of the time, you're going to be pressing something other than the dodge key. So that's the first thing we're going to check so that we can see whether or not we want to finish the rest of the script. So what I'm going to do is check if key press OpenBOR constant, and let's see, flag attack 2. We're going to make our dodge button the attack 2 button. And I'm going to wrap this and make it a knot, and then we are going to return. And I'm going to add just a little bit of if we did not press dodge, dodge key, then exit. I'm just putting little notes here so that you can tell exactly what's going on if you copy this script and are using it for yourself. If we are not idle, then exit. And then we can decide what to do if we've passed these checks. So, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself so much. So we're going to come to this script, right? And it activates when the player presses a key while they are playing the entity that has this key script, which we'll get to in a moment. It's going to pass the acting entity to my function. My function will get the player index, and it will get the player's idle state. Let's move this down here, because again, we want to optimize this as much as possible. The first thing it's going to check is the status of the keys. Now, our attack 2 button, and remember we can relabel attack buttons, but when we're running script, the script button is always going to be flag attack 2. So we'll relabel that in our keys.txt if we really want to. But anyway, anytime that the player presses the attack 2 button, that's going to be our dodge key. So what this little logic here is we are checking the bit, because remember I explained about keys, they use bitwise logic. So if the attack 2 bit is active, or in this case, see we're making it a not, so we're saying if the attack 2 bit is not active, and that is the key press, the initial key press, then we will return because they're pressing something else besides the dodge key. Like they're pressing like attack 1 or they're pressing up or jump or whatever. Now once we get past that check, we're going to see if they are idle. Are they walking or are they standing still? Well, if they're not doing either one of those things, then they're already too busy. We don't want them to be able to dodge while they're in the middle of an attack or getting punched in the face, right? So in that case, we also exit. If those two things pass, then we can decide if we want to dodge up or down based on which direction they're holding, which I'm going to type that label here in. Based on player direction key. Now I'm going to add one last else here. Actually, I don't have to add an else there. My bad. We might want to add something to where if they're pressing, if they're not pressing up or down, then dodge does like a different action. Maybe it just ducks or something, but that's window dressing. I just want to get you guys the basic principle, and I'm already getting a little long-winded here. So now we're going to activate that animation. So to do that, we will say perform attack. That is a native function for scripting, and all it really does is send the entity into an attack state, but that basically just means that they're not idle, they're now performing an action, and then it sets that animation for you. And I believe the animation constant is, oops, that's OpenBOR constant, OpenBOR constant Annie follow 2, I think was, make sure I get these right. Let's see, follow 2 was our dodge, follow 2 was our dodge down, yep, okay. And that's 0 for resettable, which you don't have to worry about that. Just make this a 0. It's a flag that basically means if the animation is already in place, if perform attack will reset it. I just like to leave all of my flags in here that way I know the flags are present, but you don't need to worry about it. It's not going to make any difference in this case. Just make it 0. Follow 3. Dodge based on player correction or keys. So once again, let me look over this real quick. Oh, and whenever you write a function, guys, it's always good to put a header block into your function. Now, this is not just to try and claim ownership or anything like that. It looks like I'm being braggy here. Oh, this is Damon Caskey on such and such time. This is more for you than it is for other people, so that when you come back and look at this function, it'll jog your memory a little bit and let you know what you wrote it for. And trust me, you do enough development and you are not going to remember what half the stuff you wrote is, and you're going to need some notes in there to kind of get your brain kicked back into gear when you come back to maintain it. So perform a dodge based on player direction key press. Simple enough. So there we go. Written by Caskey, Damon Vaughn, that's me, on 2022 8/21. And that is what the function does, and that just kind of gives you a little something to go off of. You know what it's for, and you can even go so far as to close it up like this to remove clutter from your screen. So let me take one last look here. Void main, acting entity. Oh, it would also help if we implement the function. There. Now remember, if you're not aware, the main function is something that runs whenever a script is activated. So when an event triggers, OpenBOR runs main, and then of course main will run whatever code is inside of its blocks. So we are getting the acting entity and we are passing it along to the DC command dodge function, and then it takes it from there, and I've already walked you through that, which I'm going to do one more time when we're finished, but I'm not going to bore you with it now. Let's try some things out. So let's save this, and then let's go back to Kula. And I am embarrassed to say I do not remember what the key script command is. I believe it is on key script, maybe? Guess we'll find out. Excuse me. Data, cares, Kula, and I should have put that in a separate script folder, so I'm going to close this. I'm going to make a new folder. You don't have to put this in a separate folder. I just like to. It helps me keep things organized. Scripts. And let's drag it over there. Okay. Now we'll go back to Visual Studio. Opened it in the wrong copy of Visual Studio again. File. Open. Not a folder. File. Open. Goodness gracious. File. Scripts. Yeah, just so we can have it open there. Data, cares, Kula, scripts, and event key script. Goodness gracious, I can't type. Let's have like that on key script. That does not need to be in quotes. Data, cares, Kula, scripts, key event script.c. It does need its file extension though. And that should come close. I doubt it's going to work the first time, but let's give it a try, see if we get an error. Okay, it loaded up. Okay, well, it loaded, but it doesn't look like my action is working. Let me check the options and make sure that attack 2 is configured. Yes, attack 2 is is configured. It is S. So what has probably happened is I'm using the, I didn't write this command correctly on key script. So let me just, instead of sitting here doing trial and error, let me take a look at the engine code and execute key scripts. Let's just remove on and see if it's key script. Okay, there's that. And then, when in doubt, the log command is your friend. So this will tell me if my key script is activating or not. Okay. You'll notice that the engine refused to load. That is actually a good thing, because that means that it did notice my key script. Now it kind of blew up in my face and wouldn't load, but that's okay. Now we have an error to work with. Script compile error in entity key script, get entity property line 44. Oh, I tried to get something that wouldn't work, so idle is not a C, so there we go. I should have asked for idling instead of idle. Let's go back over here and make that correction. And then we'll try and run it again. All right, blew up again. Oh no. No problem. Have another look at the log, see what made it mad. Script compiler, OpenBOR constant line 57. Okay. It looks like I did not use the correct key constants. Flag. It's moved down. And I'm hope this will act as another lesson to you. Notice how quickly I'm able to correct these errors just by checking the log. The engine will tell you, if you know where to look, exactly what's wrong, and you can fix it fairly quickly. Oh, we've loaded up. Now let's try. Okay. As soon as I press the key, something went wrong, and all right, notice my pressing the keys triggered a hello world, hello world, hello world. But then we had a function that needed an entity handle. So executing entity script, perform attack. So I probably left the entity out of perform attack. Yep, sure enough. Acting entity there. And this is the bad thing about live coding, is it makes things look a lot more complicated than they really are, because sometimes it takes some trial and error. All right, now let's fire this up one more time. Okay. The dodge down worked, the dodge up didn't, so that just means I've got a typo somewhere in there. How do I find out what that typo is? Oh, that again was the whole perform attack debacle. I just didn't correct both of them. So acting entity, and there we go. Now why don't we just get a little fancier here? Int animation ID, which will be 0. You know what? Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. That was me thinking out loud, having an ADHD moment. Don't worry about it. Forget I just said that. All right, so perform attack, attacking entity, constant follow 2, perform attacking entity, or acting entity, enemy follow 3. All right, I think that should do it. And there it is. I can press, oh, no it isn't. No it isn't. Still not working. What did I do? What did I do wrong? Perform attack, return an exception. Oh, I'll tell you what I did wrong. I forgot to press the save key. Try again. There we go. So now I can be walking along, and if I press, let's get these girls out of the way because nobody cares about them. Hubcaps and Prissy. Oh, those are creative names. So now that we have our script and it is functioning, the way it operates is regardless of which direction we are facing, I can be walking, and if I press dodge, nothing happens unless I'm also walking up or down. So if I press dodge while down, then she dodges down. Dodge while up, then she dodges up. And this works when she's walking diagonally too. So if I'm moving diagonally and press dodge, then she will dodge up or down. Now, of course, we can add more conditions into our script. So I could potentially just add something where if she just pressed dodge, then she would duck. And why don't we do that? Since we have an extra button that we've added, why don't we make it always do at least something, right? So what we're going to do is add an else, and this is if you're not pressing any other direction key. And we will perform attack Annie follow 4. And let's go back over here to Kula. Oh, where did I put those? Oh, follow 2, follow 3. It's a good idea to, okay, good idea to label these. So this is our dodge down. This is our dodge up. And we're going to make another copy here. Annie follow 3. Annie follow 4. This time she's not going to be moving. And all she's going to do is a quick duck. So let's go back to the engine and open up one more time. And there we go. If I press dodge and I'm not pressing up or down, then she ducks. And if I'm moving, then it causes her to slide because she maintains the momentum. Now we can always put something in the duck to make her stop moving if we really wanted to, but I don't think you guys want that because that just kind of gives her a forward dodge or a back dodge. So now we can move forward, we can move back while we're ducking and kind of get in close on everybody. Oh, you didn't see me. Nope, over here. Now, while I'm doing all of this, let's add one more touch to this, and that is a custom key. Now, I don't remember the command for doing that, but that's why I'm always willing to refer to my own notes. So I'm going to go to one of my existing projects, Golden Axe Hack Job, and let's see, is it menu? Ah, I believe that it is. So we're going to copy, actually we'll just copy the menu text. I'm going to show you one last little touch that kind of gives your modules that professional polish when you add extra keys. So menu, let's rename the key attack 2, and we're going to call it a dodge key. And then we disable the keys attack 3 and attack 4 because we're not using them at all. And that takes them out of the options. And that way when your players fire up the engine, they don't see keys that don't exist. So if I were to go to options and look at my control options set up for player 1, you'll notice, oops, I guess I didn't, oh. I think I had commented out those disables, didn't I? Yeah, I had, so my bad. There. Save that. Oops, back. Sorry, kind of got into autopilot there. Options. Control options. Set up player 1. Okay, there we go. Now the controls make a whole lot more sense. We've got move up, move down, left, right, attack. We've got our dodge button, which is now labeled dodge. Now remember, back when I first started this, I said that within script, it's always going to use the same constant. So if I go back over here, it does not change the OpenBOR key constant. It's still flag move down, it's still flag up here, flag attack 2. So internally the engine still thinks of it as the attack 2 button. It just puts the dodge label on there for your players to see. So we have an attack button, we have a dodge button, special, jump, start, screenshot, and we're ready to go. I'll go back to the game. And as before, I can slide forward and back and up and down. And that's it. Now I'm just going to walk you through the process one more time. And I know that this video was really long because I was more or less trial and erroring my way through, but I want you to see how simple the script is compared to some of the other stuff and why this is really more of a workable solution and certainly a more optimal one. So starting with Kula, we created our dodge animations and they were very simple. We just had a follow 2 and a follow 3, and all I did was use jump frame to put some sliding in there. You'll want to dress yours up a little bit more, but that's really more to your module and less about this process. So once you have the dodge animations, then we have a key script. Now the key script is just for this entity, and every time a player presses a key, that key script is going to activate. So back over here in our key script, I'm going to remove my hello world log there, the main function will run. And we're going to get the entity that triggered the function. So that is acting entity, that's going to be our entity pointer. And we will pass that as an argument to the function that's going to execute our dodge. So once the dodge function starts, we have a couple of variables that we initialize here. The player index is the identity of the player that is controlling the entity. They are 0 index, so player 1 is 0, player 2 is 1, and so on. Then we are going to get the hold key, that is the keys that the player is currently holding, they were already holding when this script first activated. Then we are going to get the key press. So that's going to be the key that triggered the script, right? And then we'll need the idle state of the entity. Now these are just initializing the variables. They're not doing anything yet. So first we get the player index. We get that from the acting entity by using a get entity property, player index. So there we go. We now know that we are player 0 or player 1 or player 2 or player 3. In all of those, or all these cases where I've been messing around with this, I was player 0. Next thing we want to do is know what key triggered this script. Now, if that key was anything other than the dodge key, we don't care, right? Because this is only for a dodge action. So if the flag for the dodge key is not active, we are going to return, which means that function is done. It's over with, and nothing downstream is ever touched or cared about by the CPU. The next thing is we check our idle status because we don't want to be able to activate a dodge unless we're in an idle status to do a dodge. In other words, if we're walking, then we can dodge, and if we're standing, we can dodge, but not if we're jumping around or being hit or in the midst of an attack. Once we get past those two conditions, that is when we choose how we're going to dodge. Now this is where we read the key the player is holding down. So we get, using our player index, the key's status. And then we compare the key hold and we compare its bit. If the bit for flag move down, if the bit for moving down is active, then we will execute the down dodge. And of course, same thing for up dodge. And then if neither of those bits are active, then we just perform our duck. Now this is where some of the optimization comes in. You might notice this sort of weird, that doesn't look like an and symbol that you're familiar with. You've probably seen it as this, a double ampersand. That is because in the case of a single ampersand, we are comparing the bits that comprise a variable and not the variable's total value. Now I'm going to go into detail, I believe I said this last time I made a video, and I still will do it, about how bits work. But right now, all you need to know is that when you're handling keys, you only need to get the key variable one time, and then you can compare using these bit masks. The OpenBOR constant is getting a bit mask rather than a full integer, and we are comparing those bits. So in other words, we are looking at the bit that is encoding key hold, not the key hold total value. And the bit we're interested in is the bit that controls move down or move up respectively. So that's a much faster script than getting the player property over and over and over again, like I saw in some of the other stuff. And it's also faster than getting a key hold and a key press over and over, even if you already have the player property. Now, what it also makes this more optimal than the other solutions is, again, this is a key script. And unlike an animation script where it's having to check the animation script every time a frame happens, and then it's looking through a lot of different conditionals to find out whether or not it executes, here it's only executing when a specific key is pressed. So every time you press a key, yes, this function does activate, but it exits as soon as it knows that the key we're interested in is not being pressed, which of course is most of the time, and then none of this downstream code happens at all. Also, it's just a lot more versatile. So you can have multiple walk animations, you can have multiple idle animations, and if you happen to set an idle flag, say if you have an attack that you put an idle flag into so that you can cancel out of that attack, then your dodge is also going to work there as well. So anyway, I know this is run on for quite a bit. I hope this helps you out and kind of shows you more of a simplistic way to activate scripts, or excuse me, to activate command scripts. I know the video ran forever, but as you can see, the end result is pretty easy to implement. I'm going to copy it onto the forum, and if you have any questions about it, feel free to post about it, or I guess maybe hit me up in chat. Everybody, be good, and we will see you next time.